I discovered my girlfriend was cheating with my brother. I exposed them at my wedding. But the drama is far from over. I, 45 am, never imagined that I would be writing this, yet I feel compelled to do so. My wedding day last week was supposed to be the best day of my life. Instead, because of my own acts and the betrayal of my family, it became a nightmare. I'm not sure if I made the correct decision, and I'm still processing everything that transpired. This is the complete tale. I believe that the woman I was seeing 6 years ago was the love of my life. After almost 2 years of dating, I was thinking about popping the question. I believed that she, 32F, was all I could have ever wanted. Intelligent, attractive, and we appeared to have similar values. I happened to find some text messages on her phone one day. I swear I wasn't spying. I had seen them when she was in the shower and asked me to check something for her. She and my younger brother, 40M, exchanged messages. I initially believed it to be harmless family banter, but as I continued reading, my heart fell. Let's just say it was obvious they were more than just buddies because they were discussing getting together and how much they missed one another. As soon as she emerged from the shower, I confronted her. She initially tried to gaslight me into believing I was paranoid by denying it. She started crying though, when I showed her the messages. She and my brother have been having an affair for months, right in front of me, it turns out. I was heartbroken. The two people I trusted the most in the world had betrayed me in the worst way possible. Not only had my girlfriend cheated on me, but she had done it with my own brother. I told her to leave my life and immediately stopped our relationship. My brother attempted to defend it when I challenged him about it. Can you believe that he claimed they couldn't help their feelings after falling in love? As though somehow that made it okay. I told him I didn't want to see him ever again and that he was dead. My parents should be on my side, wouldn't they? False. They continued to urge me to forgive my brother, even though they were disappointed in him. They would say, "He's your brother. Family is the most important thing." In my opinion, loyalty and trust are the most crucial factors, and both my parents and brother have demonstrated that they are unaware of this. I broke up contact with everyone. I knew I couldn't have individuals like that in my life, even though it was difficult. I spent the following couple years concentrating on myself. In order to deal with the trust issues this whole mess had caused me, I began therapy, put myself into my work, and gradually began to reconstruct my life. Then I met my now wife, 39F, approximately 2 years ago. She was patient, kind, and compassionate, unlike anyone I had ever encountered. She was aware of my background and my family's problems, but she never pressured me to get back in touch with them. I felt like I could trust someone again with her. The happiest moment of my life was when I proposed to her. I was thrilled to begin this new chapter as we began organizing our wedding. Naturally, neither my brother nor my parents were invited. They were no longer a part of my life, in my opinion. I did, however, inform my parents about the wedding, not because I wanted them to attend, but rather because I knew they would ultimately learn and I didn't want any trouble. I made it apparent that neither my brother nor they were welcomed. Of course, they tried to argue. My father gave me a family lecture and my mother sobbed, but I refused to back down. On the wedding day, everything went according to plan. I felt like I was finally receiving the happy ending I deserved. My wife looked stunning, and our friends were all there to support us. That is, until right before the ceremony started, my best man rushed up to me. "Your parents are here," he stated with a distressed expression. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach when they said, "And they brought your brother and his wife. Dare they? How dare they bring my brother, of all people, and arrive without invitation?" I was enraged. They were supposedly unwilling to move, even after I told my best guy to tell them to leave. Barely able to control my rage, I called my father. I spat into the phone. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" He said, "Son, it's your wedding day." As though that clarified everything. "We're your family. We should be here." With a trembling voice I stated, "I made it clear you weren't invited. Especially not him." 6 years have passed, my father countered. "Don't you think it's time to let bygones be bygones? Your brother is sorry for what he did. He's married now. His wife is pregnant. Can't we just be a family again?" What I was hearing was unbelievable. Did they honestly believe that all would be forgiven if they simply showed up? That I'd throw open my arms to them? I said, "Get out," in a strong, icy tone. "All of you, get out now, or I'll have security remove you." "Don't be dramatic," my dad said. "We're already here. Just let us stay for the ceremony, for your mother's sake if nothing else." I was on the verge of losing it all when my wife showed up. She could see how unhappy I was because she had overheard a portion of the talk. "What's going on?" she inquired, her expression displaying worry. I told her what was going on, thinking she would be as upset as I was. However, my wife, always the rational one, suggested a middle ground. She answered, "Let them stay for the ceremony. It's not worth causing a scene and ruining our day. We don't have to interact with them. After the ceremony, they can leave." I understood her argument, even though I didn't like it. I did not want a family fight to be the only memory of our wedding. I agreed against my better judgment. The ceremony proceeded according to schedule. I made an effort to concentrate on my wife, our vows, and our professed love for one another. However, I couldn't help but be hyper-aware of my family members seated in the back rows, my father sitting rigidly with a fake smile on his face, my mother wiping her eyes with a handkerchief, my brother appearing uneasy, and his wife clearly pregnant. I noticed my parents approaching us after the ceremony while everyone was chatting and praising us. I stiffened, braced for conflict. However, my best man stopped them before they could get to us and reminded them of the deal, which was that they would go following the ceremony. I observed their silent argument, my father appearing stern and my mother making frantic gestures. At last, my brother and his wife followed them as they turned and departed. With a sigh of relief, I believed that the worst was behind us. The speeches followed though. In his emotional toast, my best man expressed his happiness for us and our friendship. Other friends joined in, offering wishes and amusing anecdotes. I then made the decision to give my own spontaneous speech, driven by a combination of rage, champagne, and a desire for vengeance. I got to my feet and clinked my glass to get attention. With all eyes on me, the room went silent. We hadn't planned for me to give a speech, so I could see my wife giving me a questioning look and probably wondering what I was doing. To my brother, I murmured, maintaining my composure in spite of the rage that was building within me. There was a whisper in the audience. Those who were aware of my past relationship with my brother appeared perplexed, while those who were not likely found this to be a kind gesture. Adding, "My brother isn't here today. But I'd like to thank him all the same. You see, if it wasn't for him I might never have met my wife." I stopped, sipped my champagne and looked around the room. My brother and dad, who had been about to leave, had halted their journey. Their looks were a mix of fear and optimism as they stared at me. 6 years ago my brother did me a huge favor, I remarked, sarcasm leaking out of my voice. He showed me exactly the kind of person he is by having an affair with my girlfriend. Deathly silence fell in the room. I couldn't stop, even though I could see the discomfort and shock on people's faces. I was releasing years' worth of repressed hurt and rage. I went on, "That betrayal taught me a lot. It taught me that the people you trust the most can hurt you the deepest. It taught me that family doesn't always mean loyalty or love. And most importantly, it set me on the path that led me to my wife." I noticed the worry in her eyes as I turned to face her. However, I was too far gone to turn back now. I said, "So thank you, brother," as I lifted my glass. "Thank you for showing me what true betrayal looks like. Thank you for teaching me that blood isn't always thicker than water. And thank you for being such a monumental screw-up that it made me work on myself. Made me become a better person, a person worthy of someone as amazing as my wife." After emptying my glass, I placed it firmly on the table. The silence that followed was deafening. I could see my brother's wife staring at him in disgust and shock, my parents looking like they'd been slapped, and my brother, well, he couldn't even look up from the floor. "Oh, and mom and dad," I added, "thanks for showing up uninvited and bringing him along. It gave me the perfect opportunity to let everyone know exactly what kind of family I come from." I felt a weight lift as the door closed behind them, but it was quickly replaced by another one as I turned to face the stunned crowd of our wedding guests. My brother's wife practically dragged him out as they left, followed by my parents, my mother crying and my father red-faced with embarrassment or anger, I couldn't tell. The hush was broken by my wife first, who gestured to the waiters and remarked, "I think we could all use another drink." Suddenly, the enchantment was broken. And conversation resumed, though I could hear whispers of my name everywhere in the room. With a look of disappointment and worry on her face, my wife drew me aside and questioned, "Was that really necessary?" I replied, "I'm sorry," as the adrenaline left my body. I couldn't let them get away with showing up like that, trying to play happy families after everything they've done. Squeezing my hand, she sighed and added, "I know what you mean, but this was meant to be our day. About us, our future, not about your past." She was obviously correct. In my rage, I had made our wedding about my family's turmoil rather than our love. I experienced a small remorse, but it was outweighed by the relief of finally getting my point over. I tried to refocus the conversation to more upbeat subjects, but I could tell that my outburst had clouded the event. The remainder of the reception was a bit of a haze, with people approaching me repeatedly, some expressing support and others obviously uncomfortable. I didn't really realize the consequences of what I had done until later that evening, when my wife and I were by ourselves in our hotel room. I sat heavily on the edge of the bed and whispered, "I'm so sorry, I ruined our wedding day." "You didn't ruin it," my wife remarked quietly as she sat next to me and took my hand in hers. "It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that's what matters." I exclaimed, "How did I get so lucky to find you?" As I gazed at her, amazed by her forgiveness and understanding. She said, "I love you and I'm on your side, always," with a smile that quickly changed to a serious face. "But what you did today, it's going to have consequences. Are you ready for that?" she said. I gave a hesitant nod. "I believe so," I murmured. "We'll deal with whatever comes up together, right?" she said, "Always," and leaned in to give me a kiss. I couldn't help but wonder what those repercussions might be as we went to bed that night. I had publicly humiliated my family and exposed our private issues to the world, and while I felt justified because they had invited themselves, I was also concerned about the fallout. How would this impact my wife, who had been nothing but supportive, but I knew this wasn't what she'd agreed to when she decided to marry me. Would my brother's marriage survive this revelation? Would my parents ever talk to me again? I silently promised myself and my wife as I fell asleep that I would confront whatever came next, stop avoiding my history, stop allowing my family's behavior to dictate my life and start thinking about our future, mine and my wife's. I had no idea that the drama would continue for weeks to come, with surprises and confrontations I never expected, but that's a tale for another day. For the time being, I'm left wondering, did I make the right decision? Did I sink to their level, or was it okay to publicly shame my family? And most importantly, how do I proceed from here? Thank you for reading this far. I feel like I'm at a crossroads and I'm not sure which path to go, so I would appreciate any thoughts or ideas. First update. Life threw me another curveball a week after the wedding disaster, just when I thought things may settle down. I know this is out of the blue, but I need to talk to you in person, if possible. There are things I need to know, and I think you're the only one who can give me honest answers, said my brother's wife, 35F, in a trembling voice when she called me yesterday. Incredulous, I frantically tried to think of what she may want to discuss, and then it dawned on me: the wedding, my speech, and the disclosure of my brother's affair. As soon as I hung up, I went to locate my wife, who was working on some files in our home office, and she realized something was wrong after seeing my face. I told her I would consider it and get back to her. I told her what was going on, half expecting her to instruct me to keep my mouth shut, but my wife, as usual, took me by surprise. "I think you should meet with her," she remarked after giving it some thought. "You see, we can't change what's already done. However, your brother's wife is innocent in all of this. She is now enmeshed in a tangle that she did not cause. Don't you think you should give her some closure if you can?" She was correct, and even though I wanted to forget about it, I couldn't deny that my actions at the wedding had probably completely upended this woman's life. And she was pregnant, for crying out loud, and that the stress of it all couldn't be good for her or the unborn child. My wife agreed to accompany me for support, so I called my brother's wife back and set up a meeting for the following day at a quiet cafe. My heart sank when I saw my brother's wife enter. She looked exhausted and drawn, her eyes red-rimmed as if she had been crying. She must have been in her third trimester, and as she drew nearer, I could see that her pregnancy was even farther along than I had thought. This made me feel guilty once more. As she slid into the chair across from us, she said, "Thank you for meeting me. I need to know everything, from the beginning. I need to understand what happened between your brother and your ex-girlfriend. When it started, how long it went on. Everything." I inhaled deeply before telling her everything. How I had discovered the messages on my ex's phone. How I had confronted them both. How they had attempted to defend it by claiming to have fallen in love. How my parents had urged me to forgive them, and how I had severed all contacts with them. I kept a close eye on her expression while I spoke. She continued to be largely unresponsive, but I could see the anguish in her eyes and the faint quiver of her bottom lip. She was silent for a while after I was done, then she said, "Are you certain? Are you positive that it was him?" "Yes," I muttered. "I apologize, but I'm positive." Her hand instinctively moved to rest on her big belly as she nodded softly. "It was all a misunderstanding," he informed me. "Because you were attracted to his girlfriend and found it hard to believe she had chosen him. You severed relations with the family for that reason." Anger shot through me. He had lied to her, of course. Why had I anticipated a different outcome? I repeated, "I apologize," as I was at a loss for words. She gave a headshake. Avoid becoming. You are not to blame. I'm at a loss on what to do. A baby is due in a few weeks. How can I possibly believe him? With someone who could do this, how can I raise a child? My wife gently raised her voice. I have no simple solutions. You're not alone though, and I want you to know that. We are here to help if you need it in any form. My brother's spouse gazed at her with an expression of surprise. Why? You're not even familiar with me. The simple response from my wife was, because it's the right thing to do. And regardless of what has transpired between the adults, that baby is family. With a wave of pride and affection for my wife, I nodded in accord. Of course, she was correct. My brother's child, my niece or nephew, shouldn't be affected by any problems I had with him. With passion choking her voice, my brother's wife responded, thank you. As of right now, I have no idea what I will do. However, it means a lot to know that I have support. We continued our conversation, exchanging contact details and forming provisional plans to keep in touch. She was about to depart when she stopped and gave me a serious look. She remarked, I can see why you did what you did at the wedding. I understand, but I'm not saying that was right. I am, in a sense, appreciative. At least I now understand the reality. We were both deep in thought on the way home. My wife finally raised her voice. Are you all right? She inquired. I let out a sigh. I'm not sure, I feel bad for hurting her. However, I'm also relieved that the truth has come to light. Is that really so bad of me? My spouse gave a head shake. It's a human. The entire scenario is complex and disorganized. There are no unambiguous right or wrong responses. Of course, she was correct. However, I couldn't get rid of the impression that this was only the beginning. The truth was now known to my brother's wife. But how would she use that knowledge? Would she go up to my brother? Drop him? What about the infant? I became aware that what I had done at the wedding had started a series of uncontrollable occurrences. My brother's wife and their unborn child were the first innocent people caught in the crossfire, and that was all I could do at this point. I looked to my wife as we walked into our house. I said, I appreciate you being here and helping me through this whole thing. She gave me a gentle kiss while grinning. Never, she answered. Remember that we are a team. I nodded, appreciating her steadfast assistance. At least I knew I wouldn't have to face it alone, no matter what happened next. But I couldn't stop thinking as I lay in bed that night, unable to fall asleep. What would happen tomorrow, and how many more lives would be impacted by the truth I had let loose? Second update. Since my last report 2 weeks ago, a lot has happened in the scenario. Even though I'm still processing everything, I feel obligated to tell you what has transpired. As I previously stated, my brother's wife contacted me in an attempt to get the truth about the events that transpired between my brother and my ex-girlfriend 6 years prior. I told her everything when we first met. To put it mildly, the talk was challenging. She contacted me again a week later, her voice emotional and tremulous. She said, "Can we get together again? I don't know who else to turn to, and I need to talk to someone." The following day, my wife and I met her at the same cafe. I was astonished by her appearance. I was concerned because she appeared even more worn out than previously, with pale skin and black circles under her eyes, especially considering how far along she was in her pregnancy. She began speaking as soon as she took a seat. With trembling hands she added, "I confronted him. I asked him to be honest with me, and I told him what you told me." In the hopes that my brother had finally made up his mind, I held my breath. Naturally though, that was too much to ask for. She went on, her voice hardly audible above a whisper. "He denied everything. He accused you of lying, claiming that you've always envied him, and attempting to destroy his life. He even implied that you might be the one who had the affair and that you're blaming him for it." I was furious, but my wife quietly pleaded with me to let my brother's wife finish. With tears in her eyes, she looked up at me and whispered, "I didn't believe him. I wanted to, but he seemed to be reading from a script based on his reaction. And he became irate when I asked him for specifics. He has never before become upset with me. I realized then that you were being honest. Although I was glad that she trusted me, I was sad for her and her unborn kid." "What will you do?" my wife inquired softly. I had seen that my brother's wife frequently made this action when she was under stress. Her hand moved to her belly. "I'm not sure," she said. "I just don't see how I can stay with him, and I've been thinking about it constantly." I tried to sound objective as I inquired, "Are you thinking about getting a divorce?" Slowly, she nodded. "I believe I must. Someone who can easily lie to me and to everyone else around him is not someone I can trust, and I cannot raise a child with them. How would that set an example for our child? I was unable to refute her reasoning. I was impressed by her strength, if nothing else. My wife asked if you had spoken to a lawyer. The wife of my brother shook her head. Not just yet. Before I did that, I wanted to make sure. To be sure I wasn't overreacting, I suppose I wanted to speak with you first. I told her, you're not overreacting. My brother's actions constitute a grave betrayal of trust. Furthermore, it speaks something about his character that he is still lying about it today. She wiped away a tear and nodded. I understand. I simply never imagined that I would find myself in this situation, considering divorce while pregnant. It has the plot of a lousy movie. Squeezing her hand, my wife extended her arm. She said, you're not alone in this. We are here to support you in whatever you choose to do. I gave a nod of assent. Yes, without a doubt. And not only for you, but also for the unborn child. Regardless of what transpires between you and my brother, that child is part of our family. We spoke about her alternatives for the next hour. In order to understand her rights, particularly with regard to custody of the child, my wife advised that she speak with an attorney. I offered to assist her in locating a qualified therapist, who could assist her in processing her feelings and making rational decisions. My brother's wife appeared calmer and more focused as our meeting came to a conclusion. She remarked, I believe I know what I need to do. I need to do what's best for me and my baby, even though it won't be easy. We bid her farewell with hugs and vowed to keep in touch. I experienced a range of feelings as we watched her leave, including relief that the truth was known, pity for her suffering, and rage at my brother. My wife broke the stillness on the way home. Are you aware that this isn't finished? When your parents and brother learn that she is thinking about getting a divorce, they will respond. I let out a sigh. I understand. To be honest, I'm trying not to think about it. We have to be ready, she added. They may attempt to hold you accountable for this. Are you prepared for that? I considered it for a while. I reached out to hold my wife's hand and said, we'll face whatever comes up together, right? She gave my hand a squeeze. Never, she answered. I couldn't get rid of the sensation that we were about to experience something significant as soon as we drew into our driveway. My parents would surely have something to say regarding my brother's wife's divorce proceedings. The wife of my brother was contemplating a divorce. Without a doubt, my parents would become involved. And me, I was at the center of everything. But I felt like I was on the right side of things for the first time in years. With my wife by my side and the assurance that we were doing morally, I was prepared to confront the truth, no matter what came next. For the first time in a long time, I felt strong. Nevertheless, I couldn't help but ponder what the consequences might be as I laid in bed that night. What would my brother think if he found out that his wife was actually thinking about leaving him? Whose side would my parents choose this time? Time will tell, I suppose. However, I am certain of one thing. I will not allow the truth to be suppressed once more. Not now. Third update. Since my last update, which was a month ago, things have drastically changed. The decision to file for divorce has been made by my brother's wife. Last week, she informed me over the phone in a steady, resolute voice. She remarked, I've given it a lot of thought. I've spoken with a therapist and a lawyer. After everything that has transpired, I am unable to remain in this marriage. I was concerned about her future, but I was also happy that she was advocating for herself. She interrupted me when I voiced my worries about her raising the child by herself. I'm positive, she stated confidently. I would rather handle this alone than bring up my child in a home where lies are the norm. Both of us are worthy of better. She is currently living with her parents after moving out. My brother will shortly receive the divorce papers. My father called me out of the blue 2 days after that call. This was the first time we had spoken since the wedding. He sounded exhausted as he said, Son, we need to talk. Your sibling is in disarray. He claims that you're responsible for everything and that you have been telling his wife falsehoods. I could feel my temper building. Dad, those aren't lies. You are aware of what he did. You've known all along. After a long silence, my father's emotionally charged voice came back. I understand. I should have handled things differently back then. As should your mother. We were wrong to insist that you pardon him. I was taken aback. Neither of my parents had ever acknowledged their mistakes before. My brother wasn't managing the situation well, my father continued. He has been drinking a lot, my dad stated. He came to our house and said that you had destroyed his life. To try to resolve everything, your mother wants to call a family meeting, he continued. Would you think about attending? I felt conflicted. I had a part that wanted to say no, to stop the family drama. Another aspect, though, seemed odd. I had assumed it had died years ago. Finally, I said, "I'll give it some thought, but I'm not promising anything." I shared both chats with my wife after the call. After paying close attention, she questioned, "What are you going to do?" I gave a headshake. "I'm not sure. A part of me wants to simply get rid of everything." She concluded for me, "But another part wants to go to the family meeting." I gave a nod. She believed I should go, which surprised me. She remarked, "This has been looming over your head for 6 years. Perhaps this is your opportunity to finally face it directly and put it to rest." "What if it simply exacerbates the situation?" I inquired. She answered, "Then at least you'll know you tried. And I'll be right there with you no matter what." That's the current situation. The wife of my brother is submitting a divorce petition. My sibling is going downhill. Additionally, I'm thinking of attending a family gathering that might either mend or reopen old scars. I have no idea what will occur. A part of me is afraid to face my family and all the hurt and rage that have been brewing for years. However, I also have a hopeful side. Perhaps that's a bold phrase, but I feel like my family has a chance for true honesty for the first time in years. I am confident that my wife will back me no matter what. And I know that by sticking to the truth, however difficult it may be, I'm doing the right thing. If I choose to attend the family gathering, I'm not sure if I'll provide another update. However, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who has read these updates and provided guidance and support. Although it has been a challenging path, it has been so much easier to know that I am not alone. Good luck to me. I suspect that I will require it.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.